Hey guys, I'm Zach, thanks for watching. In today's video we're going to talk about water carry, or how to carry a gun when you're at a pool, so stay tuned. Alright, let's talk about why it's important to carry a pistol at a water park or at a pool. And the simple answer is because you should always be carrying a gun. That's just a simple answer. There are a couple of things to consider, a couple of small gear considerations to have, but other than that, this is a pretty simple thing to do if you carry a gun every day already. So let's get right into it with the gear side of things. Now I carry a Glock 43, it holds 7 rounds of ammunition, and I carry the Hornady Critical Duty as my carry loads for the gun. The fanny pack that I carried in, which I'll show you here in a second, doesn't have a sewn-in holster of any kind, so I have a trigger guard by, I think this was made by Raven Concealment, and I have that around the trigger, and then that's how the gun sits in the actual fanny pack. So this is the actual fanny pack. I bought it on Amazon. It's one of their generic fanny packs. I do like this one because it has a zipper for the pistol, which I only put the pistol in. It has an outside zipper, which I'll put a tourniquet in, which I'll show you here in a second. And then it does have on the back, it has a additional separate compartment, which I don't currently use. I like this one versus some of the other models because this outer pocket right here helps keep the gun from printing while it's in the fanny pack. If you have a fanny pack that has just one pocket, sometimes you can see the outline of the gun depending on how big the gun is or how tight the fanny pack is to your body. I'll put a link in the description to this particular fanny pack because I found this one works the best out of the few that I've tried. Inside the fanny pack, like I said, I carry the pistol. I also carry a tourniquet. This is a TK4 tourniquet, which I've been a big fan of the TK4 tourniquets for a while. In this particular application, the TK4 tourniquet really excels. One, because of how thin it gets, and also because of the ability to use this on people with really small limbs, children in this case, which there tend to be a few of those at water parks or pools. And I also like this tourniquet because when I put it in the outside pocket, it kind of conforms around the pistol, so it keeps the pistol from printing even that much more. So I carry TK4 and the pistol in the fanny pack, and that's all I carry in the fanny pack when I'm actually in the water. And finally, I guess as far as gear, is the swim trunks. Now you're probably thinking, well, there's swim trunks, why is he bringing it up? And the answer, I think, is a pretty big reason is because when you run black swim trunks with a black fanny pack, you can kind of see where I'm going with this. The ability for this to blend in with these is pretty vital. If someone can't see that you're wearing a fanny pack, especially from a decent distance away or even close-up distance, that's probably going to be half the battle right there. So having a fanny pack, whatever color you choose, and having the same color swim trunks, I think is a step in the right direction. Now, I recently, about a week and a half ago, took this same setup here to a water park, and my day went pretty well. I got in, no one even asked me about the fanny pack, and I spent probably a couple hours at the water park. I was playing with my son a little bit. We went down some slides in the kiddie area. I was kind of running around the pool. And to be honest, it was super comfortable. I didn't really know it was there. Again, I was sitting the fanny pack a little bit lower than my belly button so that it would blend in with the swim trunks. But I never have an issue with comfort when it comes to carrying that way in a pool. So that being said, it was a pretty normal day last time I took this setup to a water park. But there are some things to consider. The first thing you have to consider when getting into a water park or a pool is you have to think about the security checkpoints, the bag checks that you may run into. Now that means they may have bag checks, they may have nothing, they may have actual metal detectors, maybe just people wanting people. So you need to figure out what the security situation is to get into the actual pool or water park. That's your first concern. Second is when you get in, you have to find some kind of family changing room or some kind of private changing room, because ultimately you're hopefully going to be wearing your actual everyday carry. So what that means is I'm not going to walk into a pool or a water park with just a single stack pistol and a tourniquet. I'm not going to spend my entire day just with those two items. So I walk in like this with everything that I currently carry, and then when I get to the family changing room, that's when I change it over. That's when I will put the fanny pack on with the pistol and tourniquet, and that's when I'll get ready to get into the actual water. Now, I mentioned the family changing room because it's important for you to call ahead to ask the water park or the pool if they have family changing rooms. And it's not a very, alarming question to ask, but to try to figure out what setup they have is important. So once you get out of the changing room, you're going to have a bag with all of your EDC, your pistol or hopefully pistols, bigger medical kit, pocket knives, all that stuff. You are not allowed to leave that by the pool while you jump in. Unless you have someone who is absolutely going to take 100% ownership of your clothes that have, that has your everyday carry set up in it, you're not allowed to leave that. So you have to lock it up. The good news is that most pools and water parks especially have lockers, but I encourage you to call and ask what size the lockers are. Ask, do they take cash? Do they take debit card? Do they usually have enough for all their guests? Calling ahead for the lockers, much like the family changing room, really will help you get a better understanding of how you can store your other guns and medical gear when you're actually in the water. And when you call and ask those kind of questions, they're not alarming questions. They're probably questions that your local pool or water park gets on a daily, if not weekly basis. So now that you're all set up and you're in the water, you're getting ready to get in the water, you have to think about something else. What are you going to tell people when they see you wearing a fanny pack actually getting into the water? So there's a couple different ways you could go. I found my best go-to answer, if you will, is just to tell them that my cell phone's in there because I'm expecting a very important phone call at some point during the day. I've only had people ask me that very, very few times, and most of the time no one even asks me what's in this or why I'm carrying it. But people nowadays will carry cell phones in waterproof lanyards at some water parks, and so telling them there's a cell phone in here, I think is the answer that usually works the best for me. But you have to have something already in your mind thought up for this before somebody catches you off guard with a question. And finally, something else to consider is just simply the cleaning and the maintenance. What I do is I wear the fanny pack in the water, I get out, change over, and I just kind of let the fanny pack air dry, if you will. When I get home, I'll unload it, I'll put it on a workbench, and I will use, I like to use CLP. Put some CLP on a brush and I'll kind of coat the entire gun with CLP. And what that does is that helps prevent the rust from getting out of control, because you're ultimately getting a metal object wet. We're not trying to have zero rust, we're just trying to manage it. So I will coat the gun with CLP, and I'll usually let it sit for a day or two, and then I'll come back and I'll dry it off, and then I'll lubricate it and I'll actually put the gun back together. So that's kind of how I clean the guns, how I keep the gun from turning into a big pile of rust. Anyone out there who watches this who carries a gun every day, even if you don't take that gun into water, your gun's probably rusting just because of sweat or if it's been rained on. So you and I know that the rust isn't a huge concern, but you definitely have to take a little more care when it comes to a pistol that you've submerged completely in the water versus one you just carry on your hip. And so we'll talk a little bit about the reliability as well. Everybody knows any striker fire pistol for the most part can get it wet, it's still going to work. There's plenty of videos on YouTube about that. What I'm talking about reliability wise is simply the ammunition. So when I take the rounds out of the gun that I got in the water with, I will sit them out, and I don't rotate them back into my everyday carry. I will usually put them in my training bucket or whatever, and I'll use them at the range or at a class. But I just make it a habit not to reuse them. That being said, I recently took out the 7 rounds that I carried the last time I was at a water park. They were wet. They sat on the workbench for about a week in my garage, which is not, which was probably about 95 to 100 degrees during the day here for the past week. And I took them to the range, and every single one of those rounds went off without an issue. I was able to fire all 7 rounds that I carried in this pistol, in this fanny pack the last time I was at a water park. So I encourage you to test out your own gear depending on what kind of ammo you carry, but in my experience with the ammo that I carry, the ammunition is usually reliable enough to still work even though it's been submerged in water. So again, to kind of wrap this up, this is something that you can do. If you already carry a gun every day, this is not going to be that much of a change for you. You may have to buy a fanny pack, maybe a pair of swim trunks, and you can really get started with that. You have to understand, water parks are these big soft targets, if you will. You have a bunch of people in a small area, in this case in a pool, and they're usually not around their phones. They're usually not around, other things. They're usually in a conditioned white, if you will. And these are extremely, extremely soft targets. This is one of those times where if you carry a gun, you're not allowed to say, "Oh, well, it's just over there," or "Oh, I don't need to carry one because of this reason or that reason." I really wanted to make this video to help inspire other people to not only be armed more often, as some other videos will suggest, but also that specifically in a pool or water park situation, you can easily carry a gun into a pool or water park. I appreciate you watching. If you got any comments, please put them in the box below. Also, smash on that subscribe button if you haven't already, and we'll see you around next time. Thanks.